Welcome to the Paranormal Zone Podcast. I'm your host, Paige. I'm a huge believer in the paranormal because I've had plenty of experiences myself, and I've decided that I wanted to share some stories of what I've witnessed and tell a couple of history and tales along the way. The Paranormal Zone is the show that will give you all things spooky, as well as a little history. We'll be talking haunts, equipment for paranormal investigating. We'll be talking to paranormal investigators about how they started in the business, and talk to people who've had paranormal experiences, and so much more. Are you ready to get scared? You're listening to Voices for Ability Radio, all abilities, all the time. Welcome to the Paranormal Zone, where we talk all things paranormal. I'm your host, Paige Whitehouse, and you're listening to Voices for Ability Radio, all abilities, all the time. On today's episode, we have a special guest joining us today from the paranormal investigation team called the Paranormal Seekers, based out of Oshawa, Ontario. The member who is joining us today from the team is the founder, Rachel Cross. Thank you so much for joining us today, Rachel.
Thank you for having me.
So for our first question, tell me a bit about you and what got you into the paranormal world and why you started investigating the paranormal.
So I am just, your typical average, maybe not average, mom. I have one son who is on the autism spectrum, so I'm kind of very much in tune with his abilities. But what got me into the paranormal was when I was very, very young. It was always told to me that my grandparents' house was haunted, and I would spend so many weekends over there. I pretty much lived there. Never had an experience, but I was always told things. As I grew up and got older, I would start going to the library and I would take out books on ghost stories. And they were never just the, fiction. They were nonfiction. So they were all true ghost stories. And I just kind of built my love for the paranormal from there. When I got to college, I took social service worker. And in my college program, there was another individual who, during one of our caring and sharing classes, as we called it, was outed by her partner as a psychic medium. Now, everybody in the course, in my class there, was asking her to, tell her about the future, give her messages and stuff. So I waited until all that died down, and I was like, hey, so I have a picture from my grandparents' house that's kind of unexplainable. If you get a chance, would you mind looking at it? And she told me she would, and we started talking and found out she lived down the street from me, and she was always talking about how she wanted to go ghost hunting. And I was like, you know what? So do I. I'm very interested in that as well. So we started going places, and eventually we ended up at Parkwood Estate in Oshawa, where we had just taken just a normal little tour. And she had so many questions for the tour guide that couldn't be answered. So we had to send an email to the curator. And then the rest is history. 20 years ago, and that was how the Paranormal Seekers started.
That's amazing. I know one day I want to go into my own ghost hunting. I just haven't found anyone yet to go with me. What made you come up with the name the Paranormal Seekers?
It just came out. It just came out one day, and we were like, you know what? That's good. Let's stick with that.
Oh, that's an awesome name. I love it.
It was very random, but you know what? It worked.
Yep, those are always when the good names come out, when it's random. Yeah. And what brought you and your teammates together?
It's a variety of things. So we all come from all different walks of life. We're all different ages. We have social workers on our team. We have registered massage therapists, truck drivers, and even a retired police officer. So we all come from different walks of life. We all come from different backgrounds, and we kind of just mold together really nicely into one. The truck driver, that would be Jay. He is my other half, so he's kind of stuck with that. But everyone else, we've kind of just picked up along the way. We do recruit occasionally, and that's how we end up with a few of our lovely team members.
That's awesome. And tell me a bit about your first investigation.
So our first investigation was Parkwood Estate, and that's in Oshawa. For those who may not know, it is located beside the hospital. It is also a very popular place for filming movies. So movies like Chicago, X-Men, Billy Madison were all filmed there. It is the former home of the founder of General Motors, R.S. McLaughlin, and his wife and their 5 daughters. Very beautiful place. Definitely has a lot of history and a few that are still sticking around. However, we can't really say too much about it because it is kind of under lock and key, if you want to call it. We did sign confidentiality forms that would, keep that history portion safe until they are ready to release it.
That's understandable. And what is your dream haunted location that you've always wanted to investigate?
Oh, I would love to investigate the Kingston Penitentiary. That is one of my dream. I think that's the whole team would love to do that, just because of the history and everything that has happened. Kingston is a very historic city, and it's a very haunted city. So it is only right that we would say that the Kingston Penitentiary is haunted. If you were looking for like outside of Ontario and Canada, I think one of the places that I would love to visit would be Gettysburg in Pennsylvania.
That's awesome. Those are one of my two big ones as well, especially the Kingston Pen. I've been wanting to go on the tour for a while now.
When you get the chance, go on the Kingston Pen tour. I have done it about 6 times. It is absolutely fantastic. I could never get enough of the stories that are told.
Awesome. I'll try and get my parents out there with me. What was your scariest investigation to date, and what happened?
Scariest investigation? I wouldn't say it was scary. It was more concerning. We did go to a private residence up in Colborne, Ontario, which is just north of Coburg. And it was a private residence, so we're not going to disclose exactly where it was. But it was a vacant home that the individuals had just purchased. It looked like it was an abandoned home, but unfortunately and sadly, it had only been vacant for 3 months. The house seemed to have a mind of its own, and when during the daylight, it wasn't so bad, but the second it got dark, it was as if the house became its own being, and it felt like the house was breathing, and it felt like it was coming in on us and wanting us out. Just those feelings of uneasiness and concern. So we decided to pack it up early. That's the first and only investigation that we have ever packed up early and left because we weren't feeling welcome.
So it felt like a evil entity in there?
I wouldn't say evil. I would say something that just didn't want to be known. Like some people and some energies don't want their stories to be told or to be shared because they just don't want that. So that was kind of like the feeling that we were getting. It was very concerning because it was as if you were becoming very anxious and panicked, was the feelings that some of us were getting. And when that happens, it's not good to keep yourself in that situation.
Yeah, I've known a couple of places that I've gone into. I've always had that feeling. I can usually tell when I don't like it or not.
Yeah.
And have you ever done an investigation alone? And if so, where was it?
So one of our rules on the group and in the team here is that you never do something alone because you never know what can happen and you always want to have that backup or that extra person. So I have done a few investigations where it was just me and another person. These were more personal investigations instead of giant places. But it's the same as if you were just doing one with a big group. You just have to make sure you know what you're doing. You have the permission to do it and you do it properly.
And what has been your favorite location that you've been able to investigate so far?
I have lots of favorites. We have been given so many amazing opportunities to investigate historic places that I don't know if it would be easy for me just to pick one, but I would say a few of them would be one that we recently did at the end of September that we can't talk about just yet because they need to figure out a few logistics before we can release where we went, but it was definitely something that I will always remember. Another one would be Fort Henry in Kingston. We had the opportunity to investigate the fort with 3 rules: stay out of the locker room, stay out of the gunpowder room, and watch out for the skunk. That was, I think, another super, evening for me because I am a very big history buff, and that was like a dream come true. just a lot of the places that we've been to is just, I'm just so happy to be there. It's just an opportunity that a lot of people don't get, but I have the privilege of being able to experience. So a lot of them are my favorite.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of paranormal equipment out there, but what is your favorite paranormal equipment that you like to use?
I like the ghost box because I like to hear. I like to hear the different voices. So we have the original PSV7 ghost box. We also have the PSV11, and we just recently acquired the brand new PSV7 Pro, which is the brand new one that allows more audio to come through, if you want to say. But that's my favorite because, again, I can hear the voices. I can hear if they're a man or a woman or a child, if they are young or old, or if they have an accent. It's kind of really cool when you think about it.
And I know we talked a bit about the first investigation that you had to end early, but did you have to ever run out of investigation because of nerves?
I wouldn't say run out. We have had to walk out of a building to collect our thoughts before going back in. This was the most recent one at the end of September that we can't talk about just yet. We did have to exit the building a few times because there was just so much happening that we needed to debrief and collect our thoughts and come up with a plan for moving forward without being in the room or in the situation where everything was going off. We wanted to go in with a plan, but the second we walked in, the plan was gone. That's how much was happening, and we just couldn't get an idea on where to start or where to begin.
And I know you mentioned doing things properly earlier. What does properly mean for you guys?
So doing things properly for any paranormal team, for that matter, is there's two main things. One is do not trespass. Trespassing is a criminal offense and it's punishable, and it can get you into a lot of trouble, whether that is through being, apprehended or even worse. It also leaves a bad taste in the mouth of people when it comes to paranormal investigators because they only think that, they go to abandoned buildings and trespass. So rule number one, doing it properly, no trespassing. The second rule goes with rule number one, and that is that you always receive permission from the property owner before doing an investigation. Whether that is verbal or written, you always have that that is your permission to be there, and they understand what you are doing. We also allow places that we investigate the opportunity to tell us what we can and cannot release. So confidentiality wise, we give them that opportunity to still have control over that so they can see and read and hear what we're going to release and then approve it that way, because we don't want to set off the wrong impression. And then third, always do your research. Research is key. And if you don't do your research, you don't know what you're walking into. So we really promote that if you are going to investigate, you do not trespass, you get your permission, and you always research.
What do you enjoy most about going to get to visit different haunted locations each time?
I love history. So I think it is just a new place with different history. It has something to tell me, and it has something to tell the world and all of our followers and everything. It's literally just, it's the history. And I just want to know more. And I love learning about people and places and things and finding out, something that may have been hidden for years that has now come to light. And it's literally just history.
What's your favorite historical period?
I love it all, but I really like the late 1800s to the early 1940s, 1950s is like my favorite. Like if you want to talk about decades would be those. It's just so many different things happened. So many things changed, so many things came about, and it's just interesting to see how everybody adapted and moved forward.
And what local history would you like to investigate?
I just want to investigate everything. I don't really have anything that I wouldn't want to investigate. History has a story to tell and a lessons to learn from. And if we can tell and learn from that, then I am happy wherever it is and whatever it is.
And for our last question for today, tell me about a location that you had low expectations for but ended up blowing your mind.
Oh, probably the last one we went on that I can't talk about just yet. That one really blew my mind because it has a history, but it's not well known. It has a story that not many know, and it's kind of kept hidden. And I went in there not knowing what to expect, and I walked out with more questions and I had answers. Another location that kind of made me go, oh, wow, was the Hillary House National Historic Site in Aurora. It was the former home of 4 very prominent doctors throughout years. And one of our team members, Allison, is from the area, and she grew up there with the rumors that, the house was haunted, there was experiences, all that kind of stuff. So she finally got the opportunity to go in and investigate, and the responses and the activity that we got was just amazing. And we should say that this happened during the day. We got to investigate in the afternoon and early evening. It wasn't at night. And that's just to show that paranormal activity and ghosts and spirits will interact at any time of the day, and it doesn't have to be dark. But that place was a really good place that kind of wowed me.
That's awesome. Yeah, I've had some paranormal experiences during the day as well.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest misconceptions is it always has to happen at night. It always has to be 3 a.m. in the morning, which is what they call the witching hour. But nope, ghosts and spirits will do it any time of the day or night.
And unfortunately, that's all the time we have for today. Thank you, Rachel Cross, for joining us today.
You're welcome.
Please join us on the next episode of the Paranormal Zone on Mondays at 9 p.m. only on Voices for Ability Radio. I'm your host, Paige Whitehouse, and you're listening to Voices for Ability Radio, all abilities, all the time.